hear me, Cassandra?
Yes, I can, Mayor.
Do I have to wear these headphones? I don't have to.
You may get feedback there with everybody in the room.
Can you hear me, Cassandra?
Yes, I can, Mayor. Counselor.
Good
Okay,
afternoon, Cassandra.
How are you?
Fine. And you?
Good, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order, the regular City Council meeting for March 17th. Please stand for a roll call, please.
Mayor Louis Trujillo,
I'm present.
Counselor David Romero.
Here.
Counselor Elaine Rodriguez. Counselor Michael Montoya. You're muted, Counselor.
Present. Mr. Mayor?
Counselor David Ulivari Jr.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Romero?
And Mr. Mayor, Councilor Rodriguez just messaged me that she was feeling sick and was not going to be able to attend.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. She will be excused. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to take a second on this very somber evening to recognize the passing of a dear friend of mine, Mr. Steve Jordan, over the weekend. God be with his family, and prayers for his wife and his children and his brothers and sisters and his mom and dad. And I think it's something that impacted the whole community. And I made an executive decision to put this information on our website concerning mental health. If anybody out there needs help or is suffering from any kind of depression or anxiety, the phone numbers are listed on our website, and they're also on our reader board. I encourage the community to utilize those numbers and share them with friends and family if they need to. And I'd just like to call for a moment of silence, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cassandra?
Mr. Mayor, approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero?
make a motion we approve the agenda as presented.
There's a motion on the floor. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulivari. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya.
Yes.
Counselor Ulivari Jr.
Yes.
Counselor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Ulivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have public input. Mr. Mayor, I do have one letter for public input,
Okay,
if I may read it at this time.
sure thing.
The following is public input regarding agenda item number 6, resolution number 21-09. Honorable Mayor and Council, my name is Lee Einer, and I am a longtime resident of the city of Las Vegas, New Mexico. First, let me be clear that what I am about to say is my own opinion as an individual member of the Charter Commission and as a concerned resident of our city, and does not necessarily reflect the position of the Las Vegas Charter Commission, as we have not met and voted on a recommendation for term of service in an open meeting. The Charter Commission has thus far held 3 meetings, the first 2 being invalidated due to violation of the Open Meetings Act. The proposed term of service would give the commission only 3 more meetings to review the charter, propose amendments, and submit them to the governing body in an open meeting. To place this in context, the several administrations which have come and gone since the charter signing have not ever managed to achieve full compliance with the terms of the charter, and we have had 11 years to accomplish that. And as doing the job properly and responsibility will surely require solicitation to public input and quite likely the solicitation of expert guidance from outside sources. An additional concern I have arises from an email sent by City Attorney Scott Aaron to Commission Chair Antonio Apodaca on March 10th, 2021, that stated subject being term of service. The email states the discussion from the governing body was that they need you to have the review completed by July 1st. The email concludes with a statement, additionally, the governing body is requiring that the committee elect a person from among yourselves to update the governing body on a monthly basis regarding your progress. Please let me know how I can be of further help. I have reviewed city council agendas going back several months, and I can find no indication that the aforementioned discussion from the governing body or the two governing body directives communicated to the chair by the city attorney appeared on any agenda, occurred during any open meeting, or were voted upon. While I am not privy to whatever communications on this topic may occurred between the city attorney and members of the governing body outside an open meeting, the email in question gives a strong impression that the decision to terminate the Charter Commission on June 30th was arrived at on or before March 10th. And tonight's discussion and vote are a mere formalizing of a discussion and decision occurring behind closed doors and out of public view. The city charter is the constitution of our city government, and its review and proposal of amendments are something I personally take with some degree of fear and trembling. It is a serious matter and one which should be undertaken with full transparency, public participation, and without undue haste. I ask that you consider these things tonight. Respectfully, Lee Einer. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That concludes public input.
Thank you so much. I'd like to also recognize our guests, a longtime educator in our community and a businessman, Gene Parson. Welcome, Mr. Parson. It's nice to have you, and welcome to our city council meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, next on the agenda are mayor's appointments, reports, recognitions, and proclamations.
I have none at this point. Thank you, Cassandra.
Next
Mr.
on the
Mayor.
agenda is councilors' reports.
Mr.
Yeah.
Montoya?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cassandra, I'd like to request that you give us a copy, a hard copy on our mailbox of that letter for the public input.
Absolutely, Councilor.
Thank you. I know Councilman Romero will probably talk about this because he used to be in the school systems. But I'd just like to ask Mayor and Council and the city manager to, now that we don't know yet if the students are going back to school or not, but in preparation, we should be in contact with the school systems and see if we can address the crosswalk situation in our city. A lot of them are in dire need of painting, and if we can coordinate something with the city and the DOT and the school systems to have those crosswalks painted before kids go back to school in April or in August. The other item I had, Mr. Mayor and Council, is an invitation for City Manager, Mayor and Council, and our Utilities Director. I will be traveling on my own to Ruidoso, New Mexico on April 9th. And I have made arrangements to get a tour of the reservoir for Ruidoso. And to my understanding, they have it opened for the public's use. They do some fishing and they do hiking and walking trails and so forth. I'd like to see what that looks like. And I know our reservoirs here are kind of locked up and secured and fenced out and stuff like that. But understandably so, PNM used to own them before us, and that was their technique. And I'd like to see if we could change that to where maybe we could bring more economic development into our community and open it up for fishing and picnicking and so forth. So you're all welcome to join, and arrangements have been made for a 10 o'clock tour on April the 9th.
Thank you, Mr. Montoya. Councilman? Anything?
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Mr. Romero.
Just to respond to Councilor Montoya, is I've been in contact with both superintendents at City Schools and West Las Vegas. I've also contacted James Gallegos from DOT, and as a matter of fact, I was waiting on an email address for James's, because in speaking with the mayor and also with the city manager, we are trying to coordinate a group effort between maintenance from the school, both school systems, the DOT and City of Las Vegas employees to go ahead and address some of those crosswalks and some of those needs, because both districts will be, depending on the parents, will be going back to school on April 5th. So that's that. And I guess, Dr. Taylor, one of my, I know I sent you some information. I know that we have a scooter business opening up that's, I guess, already operating, but as I had mentioned, right now, in the interim, we have no ordinances or policies that address who's liable, as far as an accident that happens with those scooters. Can you kind of detail as to how that license was given or permitted temporarily until that matter is addressed?
Yes, Councillor. I reviewed this with the community development director and with the attorney, and our current ordinances allow this kind of a business to take place, and so they started the business. So we had no reason to stop it from happening. We did enter into discussions with them, and we do have a memorandum of agreement with them regarding a lot of the issues that you brought up, and I'd be glad to share that with you at a later time. I just don't have it on my desk.
Okay, so has liability and I'm not sure. I'll talk with you on that separate. I just wanted to make sure that we're covered in the interim.
Yes, we are.
Okay, and then the other part that I had, Dr. Taylor, the street sweeper, I saw that it was out and about today.
Yes.
And I just, just for future, I know that it's a new vehicle, and we've had issues as far as how many times I think it's been longer at the shop than what it has been on the streets. And I guess my question is, if this happens again, is there something legally, maybe Scott, you could answer this one, that we could, just address the matter that, it's not meeting our needs, or it's not dependable, or, do we need another street sweeper or to replace it? Because, it's just like a lemon. You buy a car and it's a lemon. Well, there's lemon laws. So is there something that we can address that street sweeper?
I want to address the legal issue, Councillor, but we have, it is off, it did just come off the shop. It's back on the street, and we have ordered a new street sweeper. So we'll be so that one will be our backup.
Okay, and then my next question, Dr. Taylor, and I'm not sure if Donna's on here and she could answer it. I know Councillor Montoya had addressed the code of ethics as far as employees. Do you know, has that code of ethics been given out to the employees for signature, or is that still in the works?
I don't know if Donna is here or not. She and I discussed things just before the meeting, and she had not received an invite to the meeting, so she told me that she would be watching via YouTube and that I could text her any questions that came up. But,
I am here, Dr. Taylor.
Okay.
I am here. No, we have not. We have to develop the code of ethics and then get all the employees to sign it, but we have not done that as of yet.
We do have a code of ethics established with the city.
Correct, but we have not sent it out to get it signed, and I think it needs some modification. So that is something that that I like to look at before we actually give it to the employees to acknowledge that they have received it. And just so you know that new employees, when they come in, we do have them sign the acknowledgements, but it's always good on a policy like the Code of Ethics to have them re-sign it every so often. It's kind of as of a reminder to them.
Okay. And the reason why I ask is because it's going to tie into, I know later on we're discussing the charter, and there's ties into something there. So I just wanted to check that. Okay. Thank you, Donna. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, Cassandra.
Next is city manager's report.
Good evening, councilors. I sent you a hard copy of this report. It's just a short one-page bullet report. So let me just go through the items very quickly. I wanted to inform you where we stand with our capital improvement request to the legislature. We have indication that several of our projects have gone through the House or in the process of going through the House and will be sent over to the Senate. Most important of those, I think, at least in dollar terms, is that we do have the $3.5 million that we requested for Rodriguez Park. And actually, as you remember, we requested $11 million, and the governor's office in a conversation asked us if we could phase that. And so we gave them a couple of options. One would be to phase it over 2 years. The other would be to phase it over 3 years. They chose the 3 years, and so they're going to provide that $3.5 million. I contacted a friend of mine who is the chief financial person for the majority leader in the Senate, and he said when it comes over, they're not going to touch it if it's a governor's request. And I also had a conversation with Dominic Cabello from the governor's office, and he said, "You have nothing to worry about. This is our request. And the only time that capital projects are messed with is if the governor wants to veto something, and she's not going to veto her own project." So that's good news. And we also saw that there was some money, $90,000, that has been put towards the Riverwalk. That's from the House side. I expect that will be complemented from the Senate side, maybe for the full 225 or thereabouts that we requested. We got $185,000 so far for the police department for vehicle replacements. And again, I think that we requested more than that. We requested enough to replace 6 vehicles. That's about half. So I have reason to be optimistic that we'll get more from the Senate things. And there were some other projects that we had requested, and everything so far looks very positive. Second item is bonding capacity. And so I know we've got a lot of capital projects going on and get a little bit of momentum there, but we have some bonding capacity which would allow us to do more. And so I've been in contact with with our bond advisor, our financial advisor from RBC, and they've put together a preliminary package for us, and they will be coming to make a presentation to the council at the meeting on April 14th as to what our bonding capacity is and what it can be used for. I had a meeting just today with Highlands University, and we met with their events coordinator, and they're planning to have what we've been calling a big welcome back event, or a big event in August next year, when just 2 weeks after school starts, students at Highlands get back. It will be a community event. It will include Highlands students. They'll all be invited for free. It will include UWC students, community college students, and really the entire city. And so they've asked us to work with them, to partner with them in promoting the event and finding ways that we can work together to make it happen. They're looking at having 3, maybe more major musical events on the golf course. And so, well, of course, they'll have to play it by ear, just like we do, as to where we are with COVID. But everybody's optimistic, and that they want to really make this a big community event, including everybody. And so,
Dr. Taylor, is there a reason it's going to be held at the golf course besides the fact that they own it? But anyway, you know what? We could talk. I'd like to be in on the planning, because I'd like to see this event come to fruition, but I have quite a few ideas to include a parade and so forth.
Well, that's great news, actually, Mayor, because they wanted to see some other events complementing this.
Yep.
And I asked Loretta to put this on the Vecinos Juntos meeting agenda. So when we get together with Sam Minner and the president of the United World College and the interim president at the Luna Community College and our local high school superintendent can discuss this and find a way to really promote it big.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to be included. Thank you so much.
So this is the next item is an item that we've been struggling with for quite some time. We have a lot of people's complaints about the condition of the 8th Street extension in certain areas, and we've had jurisdictional issues which we still haven't resolved, but we have an agreement with the county to work on these things together by having the county take care of drainage issues, and they're working on that. Danny's been monitoring what they're doing, and we will come in afterwards and do some blade patching and some pothole patching for that road. We passed an ordinance just recently, a few months ago, on trucks going through residential areas, and so one of the things that we needed to do was let them have proper signage so people knew that the trucks weren't supposed to go on certain streets, and we've already got those up on 6th, 7th, and 8th Street. We've been working with DOT on getting them for Legion Drive and some of the other streets, and so they have the signs. They not only have been ordered, they've been delivered, so they'll be put up in the near future. And Mayor and I had a meeting with one of the residents, and she expressed great happiness that that the trucks weren't coming on Residential Street anymore. We got several things on public works that I just wanted to announce. One is we had a discussion about the street sweeper. It's back, it's been repaired, and it's on the street. And our crews continue to work on the potholes. So this week, the work is focused on addressing those that we received complaints about on the 311 system. We want to show responsiveness to the public on that. And a lot of those were very bad potholes, so that was a good thing. The crews are continuing to work on streetlights. We've received some bulbs. We've already replaced several. We're expecting all the bulbs we need to take care of the Valencia parking lot, which is still rather dim, and we think that those bulbs are going to come in at the end of this week, and we'll be able to have them put up sometime next week. I'm saying that with fingers crossed, because we don't have the bulbs in hand yet. And they've also been busy with getting up the street signs put up. If you drive around town, a lot of times you look at a street and there's no sign saying what street that is. They keep taking all of the street signs that they have in their inventory, and they're getting those put up. And then right after that, they'll go and do a new survey, and see where else we need to have street signs. And the last thing I have is just a little bit of a follow-up. We had a meeting with the businesses on filming issues, and that we could all work together better. And I say we, the city, the companies that are doing filming, and the businesses themselves. We did a little bit of follow-up. We had a little bit of a hiccup this week on Bridge Street, but the film company went business to business, and they compensated them. And I think that was, and we got a better long-term solution to where they'll be parking their vehicles. They had taken all the good parking spots on the Valencia lot. Now they're go back to the back parking lot. And then Chuck Griego, who's our film liaison, went and visited with all the businesses to get their input and their ideas on how we can make this a better process for everybody, because film does bring a lot of money to the city. So that's my report, councilors and Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Cassandra?
Mr. Mayor.
Mayor, next we have presentations not
Hold
to
on, Mr.
exceed-
Montoya.
Yeah, I had a couple of follow-ups on your report, Mr. City Manager. First of all, I want to thank you and the mayor and Councilman Romero for attending that meeting with the governor's office. 3.5 million is not a joke. That's a lot of money, and it's something to be very proud of. This community send out letters and request and in support, and they send out phone calls. They send phone calls and letters, and I thank you for your support for this project. Long time needed for our youth. On another subject, Mr. City Manager, Where are we on the signs for Mountain View and Legion Drive for the ton limit, weight limit? Because we passed that ordinance about 3 months ago, and we haven't seen no signs up yet.
So, Councilor, we got the signs up that were on 6th, 7th, and 8th Street. We are in discussions with the Department of Transportation. They told us that the signs are there and they will be putting them up soon. And I don't know what soon means.
Okay.
We
On Mountain View and Legion?
Mountain View and Legion. We have signs for both of those.
And a follow-up question on the MOU that Councilman Romero requested 2 meetings ago for the parking lot on Douglas and Grand Avenue. Has that been done with Mr. Carlos or Lopez?
Yes, that's been done. And, I think that that MOU was drafted, I believe, by Scott Aaron, but it's been done and signed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Since we're on the subject of money, we're going to get quite a bit of money from the federal government for our city. So I'd like to schedule a meeting specifically to talk about the use of that money. I think there's a lot that we can put that money to use, and there's a lot of projects that need that need to go there, and it looks like there's very few restrictions on how, but it's mostly tied to developing the economy of communities. So I think we could decide a couple of real economic development projects that are ready to go. I think we get half now and half next year is what I understood from a workshop I attended. And so that's, I think it was 3.5 million.
3.05 million.
3.05 million. That's a lot of money that we can do, that we can work with. So we got to get creative and come up with the way we can spend that money. So I'll be calling a special meeting just for that real soon, so that we can be ready when the check comes in. Go ahead. Anybody else? Presentation?
Mr. Mayor, just on that point, I've asked all of our directors to start putting together lists so that we could we could all brainstorm and then present them to you and the council for your consideration.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Romero.
And also to add to that subject, I did reach out to Stephen Salas with Senator Ben Ray's office to see if they had maybe a one-pager that would have direct, there's a lot of language in there, and just if they've come out with like a one-pager for the local governments to, be able to understand, what specifically can be used the money. So he said as soon as he gets anything that he'll, he'll let us know. So again, thanks to our Senator Ben Ray Lujan and Representative Teresa Ledger and our federal elected leaders. Thank them. Thank you.
Cassandra?
Mr. Mayor, presentations not to exceed 10 to 15 minutes per person. We have one presentation this evening, and that is on Peterson Dam Replacement Project by Ed Toms and Amanda Lopez from engineering firm AECOM.
Hey, welcome.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to share my screen with you guys and share a presentation. Okay, can you guys see my presentation and hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. My name is Amanda Lopez with AECOM, and also on the phone from AECOM is Ed Toms. And we wanted to talk with you today about our design project for Peterson Dam. For those of you that may not be familiar with the dam, in previous studies, there were several alternatives considered for rehabilitation of the existing dam, including overtopping protection and a dam raise. The cost estimates for these rehab alternatives were similar to the estimated cost of building a new dam with an additional 10 feet of storage. And AECOM has been working with the City of Las Vegas Utilities Director and the staff to consider new dam alternatives that would meet current dam safety criteria. So this presentation goes through our alternatives that we have been considering during the alternatives evaluation. The first thing I'd like to go over is the design basis for the new dam. It would be in the same location as the existing dam due to the rock abutments. We want to utilize the same abutments for the new dam. The geology that surrounds the reservoir limits the extent of the raise to approximately 10 feet of additional storage due to the probable limestone formations that surround the reservoir. We are suggesting further geologic investigations for future phases of the design to better quantify the raise limitations. The proposed dam has an overtopping spillway that is in the center of the alignment to keep the flood flows centered in the canyon. Right now, the entirety of the dam, top dam acts as an overflow spillway, and this allows the flood flows to impinge on the rock abutment. So with this new layout, we would center that spillway overflow into the center of the dam and have a sealing basin at the bottom to keep that flow from going onto the rock abutments. For the 404 permitting application, we are required to consider a no action alternative. In this case, that's replace in kind with an arch dam with no increase in the reservoir storage. This slide shows the 4 alternatives that we carried forward for evaluation. 3 of these alternatives include an increase in the normal reservoir pool. Alternatives 1, 2, and 3 include an increase in the normal reservoir elevation. Alternative 4 is the no action alternative. Alternative 1 is an arch dam with cast in place concrete. Alternatives 2 and 3 are roller compacted concrete gravity dam options. And the 4th option is the arch dam with cast in place concrete. We considered constructability and construction impacts, environmental criteria such as wetlands and sensitive species, and construction cost when evaluating the alternatives. So after reviewing all these criteria, the proposed alternative is alternative 1, which is an arch dam with a 10-foot increase in normal reservoir elevation. Shown here is a 3D rendering of the proposed alternative, and you can see there in the center the overflow spillway that I was talking about. And on each side of the spillway are the portions of the dam that would not be overtopped during a flood event. And the structure right here is the outlet tower. So the proposed alternative meets the city's need for additional storage with the lowest cost, the least environmental impacts of the action alternatives, and is visually similar to the existing dam. So what's next for our design project? We are currently finalizing the remainder of the preliminary design, which is taking the selected alternative of the arch dam into preliminary drawings, design report, and cost estimate. Phase 2 of the scope would be further environmental studies, geotechnical exploration, and an additional survey of the dam, reservoir, and surrounding area. Phase 3 of the scope is final design, which includes drawing and specifications for construction. And phase 4 is the construction of the dam. Now, this final slide is a picture of the existing dam, which shows how there are similarities with our proposed alternative to the existing dam. Do you have any questions?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you, and I didn't know you were on. I would have welcomed you to the meeting earlier, and welcome, Amanda. Thanks for being here, and Mr. Toms. Where are we at this point? I know that it's going to require a lot of permitting and so forth. Does it require additional permitting, or are any of these the designs good to go?
There is additional permitting, but what we did to help move the schedule along was we moved some of the environmental scope that was in phase 2. We moved that up into phase 1. So we've already been working on the environmental portions. We've had initial meetings with the Army Corps And we've had initial surveys done for environmental, for the wetlands, sensitive species, cultural resources. We have all those surveys complete. So that really gives us a head start for the environmental work. So we just need to do our reports based on that field work we've done, and then continue the coordination with the Army Corps, and really us already coordinating with them and showing them our alternatives now really gives us a much faster pace for the phase 2 when we continue the environmental permitting.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question, Councilman Montoya here. What's alternative did the staff use or select? Out of these 3 options, I guess there's 4 options, 4 alternatives.
Yes.
Which one did they go with? Or which one are you working on?
We are going with alternative 1, which is the Arch Dam with an increase in the reservoir storage. And alternatives 1, 2, and 3, all of those met the city's needs for additional storage. But alternative 1 is the least cost. And the cost mostly comes down to the quantity of concrete. An arch dam uses less concrete. And since you have an arch dam already in this canyon that we've previously analyzed the stability of that dam, we're confident in the use of an arch dam in this canyon.
And what's the cost?
Our current construction cost is coming in at $8.2 million.
Okay. And what's the time frame on this?
For our phase 1, we are completing that. We are going to submit our preliminary design in June of this year. And then our hope is to move into phase 2 pretty quickly after that. And phase 3 and phase 4 depends on the funding. It's my understanding that there may be some funding coming from the state. So that those portions are the portions that cost the most, and we're waiting on the funding decision on that.
Okay, so we're looking at 2 or 3 year period, or Maria?
Mr. Mayor, may I add something to that?
Yes, Maria, go ahead.
Thank you. We have been working with AECOM on 2 different planned schedules. One was the 4 to 5 year schedule, but we've also have about a 1 to 1.5 year schedule that is available if the funding becomes available. So Councilor Montoya, we could accelerate the project and provide AECOM direction to move through all 4 phases. I believe it was about a year to a year and a half time frame, but currently we're working with a 4 to 5 year time frame.
Okay, and my last question is, to what percentage of the dam do you have to lower the level to be able to do this work?
It is a remove and replace. So we would have to completely empty the reservoir, and we would remove the existing dam and put in the new dam.
And Maria, is that with the other dam being the levels going up slowly as per month, is that going to be sufficient water for the future of Vegas having the other one empty?
So Councilor Montoya, we will not take Peterson offline until Bradner is fully online and the water quality is fully understood by the treatment staff.
Okay.
And Bradner is larger than Peterson, so we will be able to operate under Bradner during construction.
Okay. And the Story Lake water line is connected to Bradner, right?
The Story Lake line is connected to the system. We can divert the water into Bradner. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Romero?
Maria, I had a question. There's right now in the legislature, there's a separate house for water dam projects. Have you been in contact with the area legislators to see where we stand on that?
Councilor Romero, actually, I believe city manager may have been in contact with them because we have been discussing this, but no, Councilor, I have not spoken to him directly.
Okay, Dr. Taylor, would you have?
To the state engineer's office, though.
Okay.
We haven't been in discussions with them lately. We did discuss it early on in the process, and so we're hopeful that something comes through there. I think that there's a number of ways that we might be able to get money for this project. Hopefully it would come through the state engineer and whatever money that they get for capital. But other options that we know that there's a federal infrastructure bill coming on. I was listening this morning, and one of the things that's going to be eligible for that is dams. So I think that might be something that we would try to reach out for. But we've got, I will check and see what the status is with the state engineer, or me and Maria can do that tomorrow. We have a meeting.
Because I know in my conversation with Senator Campos, he did mention that, but this was early in the process. I wasn't sure if you had heard anything, an update, if we've kind of been thrown into that bill also. Okay, that's it.
I would like to clarify that the planning and design funding is in my budget for the next 4 years. Again, if we can expedite this project with additional funding, we will expedite the schedule.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Montoya?
Maria, one more question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is this the same company that redid Bratner?
Yes, Councilman Montoya, the AECOM, formerly URS, has been working with the city of Las Vegas for over a decade, I believe, with planning and design and construction of our reservoirs.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Amanda. Yeah, I appreciate it. And Mr. Toms, thank you for being with us. And we really appreciate you spending some time with us today. And we'll move forward. Thank you, Maria. Thanks for being here. Thank you. Cassandra?
Mr. Mayor, next we have a finance report. We have Jesus Baquera, our finance director.
Mayor, council.
Welcome, Mr. Baquera.
Thank you. The report is for the month ending February 2021. General fund, the revenues are at 81% and the expenditures are at 56%. Oh, I forgot to mention that the month's end February is going to be 67%. On the enterprise revenues, they're at 65%. Expenditures are at 53%. The recreation department is at 59% revenues and 53% expenditures. Lodgers tax is at 195% revenue and 27% expenditures. You did mention that we are going to get some extra monies. We are going to wait on doing a bar to include those extra monies. And from the looks of the general fund revenues, it looks like we might be able to throw another $500,000 in that pot.
Good. Wonderful. Good news. At some point, Mr. Baquera and Dr. Taylor, I'd like to meet with you separately regarding the content of the report. I just have some different ideas on how the report can be more tangible and readable. And I think Dr. Taylor and I had a brief conversation, but maybe we can sit down and talk about the actual paper report sometime soon. But we appreciate your work, Mr. Baquera. Any questions? Mr. Baquera, are there any concerns with the budget at this time that you need to let us know about?
None.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd be glad to do that meeting with you. And just, I do want to point out, I think Jesus kind of pointed it out, but if you look at our revenues, where we are now compared to where we were last year, we're actually above where we were last year. Even though we anticipated a lean year, and we did see a small reduction in gross receipts tax revenues, overall, we're still up a couple $100,000. And that's way above what we budgeted. And that's why we may be coming in with the bar, because we've got a number of things that need to get addressed. And this is going to provide us an opportunity to do that. So I think we may put in that as an agenda item in the near future.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Mr. Montoya?
Yeah, Mr. Vaqueras, I did have a question on your fiscal year budget for 2021. In the police department, I guess line item 4,800. Does that 58% does that include overtime if we would have the 4th of July fiestas? Is that included on there?
The
What was that?
58% is actuals. So it would not happen. The fiestas would be next fiscal year. And so it's
So no monies were appropriated this last year, you're saying, for the fiestas, for the police department overtime?
no, not this fiscal year because the fiestas didn't happen. So we didn't have no overtime. We're going to budget for next year overtime.
Okay.
Because the fiscal year ends in June, so July we'd have to adjust the budget or we'd have to have it in that budget. Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, I had a question.
Mr. Romero?
For Jesus. Jesus, on looking at the budget for community development, and I don't know, maybe Mr. Hendrickson would know this, but I'm kind of getting some feedback that community development doesn't have money, but kind of this 250, is there still some issues, some things that we have to spend that budget on, or is that pretty much encumbered that these comments are being made, or?
We are working with Bill Hendrickson and keeping his budget online, and we discuss his budget with him on a monthly basis just to make sure we do not overspend on his budget.
Okay, so my big concern is there upcoming purchases, or that those comments are being made that we don't have enough. Is there something upcoming that we don't have enough budget right now? Because we're pretty much, if you kind of look at it, there's still 46% left of that budget that we budgeted for.
Bill,
I think we're right on target, right as we at this point in time. So we've had some budget adjustments, and that's satisfying where we are right at this point.
Okay,
and we have some expenditures that we're planning on making that we are already budgeted for. So I'm not sure who made those issues. It was tight in the beginning just because of COVID and the expectations that we were going to take a big hit. So we had to, move some stuff around.
Okay, so as far as abatements and that would come out of the line item code enforcement, right? Just to be clear.
Well, for sure, when we talk about abatements, we only had a small amount, like $40,000 in there. And as we've been experiencing, we've had to spend $30,000 on one of the abatements. Of course, we got that money back on the sale of the property. So if you're looking out into the future and all the potential abatements that we may encounter, yes, the budget's a little tight for right now, but we're working on what are we going to do for next fiscal year.
Okay, so you guys are looking at that closely then?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Some of that could be economic development money that we're getting from the government. Thank you.
Hopefully.
Thank you, Mr. Vaquera. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Cassandra, we have a large agenda tonight. Let's move forward with the next item, please.
Mr. Mayor, next is business items. Item 1, request approval of resolution number 21-08, authorizing the replacement of Peterson Dam. And we have our Utilities Director, Maria Gilvery.
Thank you. Welcome, Maria.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Romero.
With that, I think we've had the presentation. I make a motion to approve resolution 21-08.
Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya. All in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ca-
Roll call,
Councilor
please.
Romero,
Yes.
Councilor Montoya,
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Council.
Thank you, Maria.
Item 2, request approval of one of the 4 website redesign options. We have our multimedia production coordinator, Virginia Marujo, presenting.
Council and Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak on this first, if I may. And if we have any technical questions, of course, you can ask them to Virginia. She'd be a lot better than me answering technical questions on this. I just want to point out that, you know, we were reviewing several website designs and trying to figure out how do we do this? Do we just go forward to council and just pick one and say, here it is? I'm not sure how we did the last website. I'm sure we had a design team come in and said, hey, this is what we recommend. And so we weren't too sure how to approach council on creating a new website. And we don't want to really get into technical stuff per se, because all websites can do the same things. You know, you have menus, you direct it to other pages, our departments would be broken down, we'd have places for information and so forth. And so technically it just really comes down to, you know, how does a page display, how easy does it allow people to look at it and know what they need to do on a website? And so the first website that Virginia is going to show you is the one that we feel is the most professional looking. It has won some awards for professionalism or professional websites and like municipalities and so forth. And I'd like us to focus on that one because of its ease of use, its clean cuts. And I think for most people that wouldn't be familiar with moving around on the internet, it would be easy enough to get them going in the right direction on our webpage. And so, I mean, this is the one that we feel most comfortable with as far as presenting to the community and to council. And that is our recommendation.
Wonderful.
It's all websites, you know, can basically, all the websites we did, you were able to look at are able to handle most of the applications that we could anticipate using. So from that aspect, you know, they all will operate pretty much the same. It's pretty much, what does it look like to you? And I think the cleaner a website looks, I think the better, the more professional it's going to be in response to people looking at it.
Wonderful. I appreciate the work that you did, Virginia and Bill. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Montoya?
I had the pleasure to visit the Economic Development Department and review this website, and I think it's an appropriate website for the city. The only recommendation that I would request is that on this website, the photo of the city manager, attorney, HR director, all directors, mayor and council be included with their name and address. It's important that the public knows and can see who they're talking to at times, or whenever they're going to come and present themselves, they know who is who. So with that, if there's no questions, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a request approval.
There's a motion on the floor.
Second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please. Yes, sir.
Just discussion. I kind of concur with Councilor Montoya. Just pretty much, you know, as long as the website is, you know, very easy for, you know, just anybody to be able to log on and get on it. The important part is always updating it. And I think that's the biggest problem that we've had is, you know, there's information that is outdated in the current one. And of course, we've gone to other issues that, you know, we all discussed last week. And those, you know, those concerns need to be addressed. And that's my only comments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councillor Ulibarri Jr.,
Yes.
Councillor Montoya,
Yes.
Councillor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councillor Montoya, a second by Councillor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
I'd like to recognize Virginia Marujo for the work that she's done on this website. Good job. We're lucky to have a talent like that. And thank you, Bill, for helping this along.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
You
Thank you,
bet.
Mayor. Thank you, Council.
You're welcome. Next order of business.
Business item 3, request approval of contract between Mr. Gene Parson and the City of Las Vegas for the purchase of Lot 12C in the DBIB Industrial Park. We have Mr. Bill Hendrickson, our Community Development Director.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, Mr. Parson is here if you have any questions for him. He has requested to purchase Lot 12C. In your packet, it shows the location of that lot. He's agreed to pay the appraised price of $25,000 and also cover the appraisal fees on the property.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya?
Mr. Hendrickson, was the process followed, giving everybody an opportunity for this, or how did you just go about it?
Yes. Anybody who was interested in the first of all, we got approval from council to sell several properties, including the lots in DBIB. And we received several inquiries on the property. And then also I was working with another company along with Mr. Parson, who requested to buy it. And they eventually backed out, and Mr. Parson was the loan requester.
Okay. And another question that I had, in this subdivision at the DBIB's Industrial Park, there is also a cul-de-sac that the city is entitled to construct. And is this funding going towards that project,
All the funding for the lots that sell in the park go into the, I'm trying to think of the name of the fund, but there is a fund with approximately $450,000 in it for improvements to the park itself. And I'm working with utilities now. We're getting a bid on putting in the cul-de-sacs. Also working on the drainage, and so we haven't got the results of that yet. But the plan is to go forward and use the funding that we do have to at least put in the two cul-de-sacs.
Okay.
Thank you.
And this contract with Mr. Parson, does it include that we're not responsible for any drainage that comes from above or erosions and drainage problems, issues?
I don't think there's anything specific in the contract concerning drainage.
Okay, maybe is that a question for our city attorney?
Counselor, to my knowledge, this is Scott Aaron, city attorney. There's nothing in the purchase and sale agreement regarding drainage or anything like that.
So what happens if there's a drainage issue down the road and the property owner wants to come back at the city for it?
Well, there's not, as far as we know, there's not any, you mean water flowing onto Mr. Parsons' lot that would damage his lot?
Yes.
He would, well, in that situation, I think that may fall under threatened or pending litigation. I don't know that I'm free to give legal advice in an open forum like this.
That's
but what are we doing on this sale to protect the city from something like that?
that's legal advice, Mr. Montoya.
Yeah, that's legal advice that could be used against the city. So I'm not real comfortable.
So we can't include in there sold as is, for instance.
Well, it is being sold as is, whereas there's no representations or warranties being made by the city regarding the sale of the lot. We're just selling him the lot.
Okay.
We're not selling it with any guarantees or warranties saying that, regarding anything having to do with runoff or anything like that. As far as I'm not aware of any issues regarding that lot.
Well, there is an issue in that area with drainage, but okay. So the next question is Mr. Aaron Scott. So on this piece of property, it's under the understanding that the city of Las Vegas will do that cul-de-sac and put in the electrical or the water lines to that properties, to those properties in that circle?
I can pull up, give me a second and let me pull up real quick here.
Because to my understanding, it's the obligation of the city to do that cul-de-sac and bring the utilities, I guess, I don't know what utilities, up to the end of their property, to my understanding.
Counselor, that is part of the plans we're working on now. We did not put that in the contract just for reasons that we don't know what the funding costs are going to be. We don't know how long it's going to take. In addition, the concept of the drainage discussion is acquiring additional properties from the local rancher to store water running off the hills in the back. So that's all part of that's going on into this project and the planning, and the timing and everything was just very unknown on how long that was going to take to acquire the property. But the idea is that we, obviously to fix the drainage, there's got to be some work done in that fashion to accomplish that. And then in addition to the
could I make a recommendation that these discussions take place at another time? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask Mr. Parson if he has any questions or comments.
Yeah, Mr. Councilman Montoya, I don't have any questions at this time. I've been working with Bill Hendrickson regarding this property, and I don't know. I think I'm satisfied at this point the way things are going. I like the fact that the city is trying to get the cul-de-sac and utilities up to the property lines. I'm very grateful for that. I hope that does come to fruition. I've been looking at that hillside, and of course, kind of thinking where I want to place the building in order to, because my plan is to place some, they're kind of like storage sheds, storage buildings, to be able to accommodate my equipment so it's not getting ruined by the weather and the elements and that kind of thing. Of course, just part of the storage, but at this point, I really don't have any questions. I'm grateful to Bill for the communications we've had back and forth. But I thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Parson. We appreciate you being here. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
I just want to add, that the DBIB does fall within my district, and it's very important. Bill and Dr. Taylor is that their biggest. A lot of these individuals have purchased these properties, and a lot of those those matters that the city was supposed to be committed to, we never followed through, and it's important. And as we met with myself, Councilor Montoya, Dr. Taylor, and Hendrickson, when there was confusion as to there was properties. I know Mr. Rick Vigil and Mr. Parson have been wanting properties, and there's some other confusion with PNM, and we finally got this all settled. I'm glad. But 3 months ago, Bill, we were talking about this, and if we could make sure that we ensure that the cul-de-sacs, all that's taken care of, because that it is important to them, and it also those roads are eroding because of drainage issues. And if we at least start in this section, it's a start, and we could go from there.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the contract between Mr. Gene Parson and the City of Las Vegas for purchase of Lot 12C in the DBIB Industrial Park.
There's a motion on the floor. I'll accept a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Councilor Montoya,
Yes.
Councilor Romero,
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Item 4,
Thank you, Mr. Parson.
Very grateful.
Thank you. Thank you for your interest, and thank you for having a good business in our community.
Well, you're very welcome. And I'm, to be honest, I had opportunities to purchase properties elsewhere other than, as Mr. Romero mentioned, in this district. And I just wanted to keep it here, close to home. And, to me, it just makes sense. But thank you all very much, Mayor and Council. Truly grateful. Thank you,
Thank you,
Bill,
Gene.
as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next order of business, please.
item number 4, request to publish ordinance 21-04, amending the code of the City of Las Vegas, section 200-40 and section 301-11, entitled Alternative Method of Abatement. we have our Community Development Director, Mr. Hendrickson.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is part of our continuing review of our ordinances, specifically the ones that, excuse me, that affect community development, of which both these ordinances do. This is providing a little bit more clarification on what can occur during abatements, or once the abatement gets beyond into the courts, or the fining and so forth, or leveling liens on the property. And one change is that the original ordinance required us to go through municipal court, and on suggestion from or a direction from council, that we should just take that out and leave it to courts in general, so it doesn't have any specificity depending on what happens in a lawsuit or what have you.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero,
I make a motion to publish ordinance 21-04, amending the code of the city of Las Vegas, section 200-40 and section 301-11, entitled Alternative Method of Abatement.
thank you. I'll take a second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Councilor Romero,
Yes.
Councilor Montoya,
Yes.
Councilor Ulibarri Jr.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Ulibarri Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carried.
Thank you, Cassandra. Next order of business, please.
Item number 5, request approval to allow community development to issue permits which allow restaurant businesses to extend seating capacity by setting up tents and tables onto their adjacent roadway. Again, we have Community Development Director, Mr. Hendrickson.
Council and Mr. Mayor, as we all know, last year, due to COVID and having everybody pretty much shut down, but allowing outside restaurant seating, that we allowed the businesses to set up tents either on their property or on the roadway in the case of Douglas Avenue. And of course, we're coming up again. We still have restrictions on seating. The restaurants can't go to 100%. And so we've already been in contact with some of the restaurants, and they're interested in redoing the same thing that we did last year. And we felt that it was appropriate to present this to council and to get the, last year was more of an emergency reaction to the situation. Now we got a little bit more breathing room and can look back at how it worked out and what the future could be for doing this in other cases. But anyway, to get us through the rest of COVID, we thought we'd take this to council and get their approval.
Thank you, Bill.
Do
What
this.
discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
to approve an ordinance 21-04.
Thank you. Second, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor,
I'm sorry. Point of order. Yeah, there was a, there's not a, go ahead, Cassandra.
we're on, Councilor Ulibarri, we're on item number 5, which is allowing the seating capacity to be, you just named the wrong one.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry.
Is that okay,
Okay.
Mr. Ulibarri?
That's fine.
Okay. Mr. Romero?
we had a motion. So we have a motion that I just had discussion. I don't know if there's a second, but I had discussion before.
Go ahead.
So Bill, on this, so how, I guess, how do I say this, are we ensuring that, and I'm pretty sure we are, but I just want to clarify, the handicap accessibility, all those, when we do allow this?
Yes, they'll have to, we've got several things we're going to have to do, look at it. Last year, we kind of rushed it all. However, we've got some restrictions that, for instance, the fire department is interested in ensuring that the tents are a little bit further away from buildings and structures and stuff like that. So there'll be a little bit more of oversight on this process, and ADA, of course, would be one of them.
Okay, and then my next question would be to Scott. Scott, is there some legal language that we have to probably go forth before the council to ensure the liability is off from the city on any of these additional spacing, outdoor spacing?
Is this going to be,
Is there something that we have to specifically put in an ordinance, or, I mean, because right now it's pretty vague. We're just approving right now to allow community development to issue permits, but is there a specific language that we need to develop prior to this happening? I mean, we can't just say yes.
the language would be, say, for instance, in a permit application or the permit itself, when the vendor, when the restaurant or whoever it is signs off on this, saying that they accept the terms and conditions of what the city's allowing them to do, we could certainly put that indemnification language.
And again, and I know, this has kind of been my issue on some things that have happened in the past, is again, that language somewhere has to go through resolution or an ordinance. Department heads don't just have the authority to kind of create language, at the end of the day, it has to be approved by the council, is what I'm asking. So when would that happen?
I may be able to answer that. So the permit that we're using is our sidewalk permit. And it's the same permit that is allowing the businesses to put the fenced in area on their sidewalks in front of their restaurants that we have at Dick's right now, and the Plaza Hotel, and where Barachos was, and El Fidel, and so forth. And what we've done now is just allow them to extend onto the roadway. They have to have the same insurance and so forth that allows them to do the sidewalk part. So that we do get the insurance and on that as well. And then, of course, they have to meet the inspections of the fire department for fire and safety and so forth.
Okay, so again, on the actual language, for the liability to cover the city, let's say, of course, I understand that Dick's and Charlie's Spick and Span, we had the room, but there's going to be some businesses that might not have the room or parking area that we cannot shut down, part of the street or do any of that.
Right.
So my question is to protect the city from a liability in those areas that don't meet that extra. How do we ensure the liability?
If I understand you right, when we allow them to expand out onto the sidewalk, that is city property.
Yes.
And so, all we're doing is basically taking that concept and just extending it out onto the road distance-wise. So, because that is all city property. So unless there's some other language that we may be missing, we do get the indemnification, insurance, and all that stuff goes in with the permit requirements.
So the business's insurance would cover. Let's say, for instance, they're dining on, and we'll use the area because we had it in the past. Not to say that's going to happen or anything, but let's say at Dick's or Charlie's in that area. If somebody were to have fallen or tripped based off, you have a waitress that's taking their plates to a table there on the sidewalks, they trip and fall. Whose liability is it? Or even one of their customers? Is it the city's liability?
No.
But it's a city sidewalk. Technically it's the city sidewalk. Or maybe you could answer that, Scott.
I think to address your concerns, if I'm not mistaken, and Bill can correct me if I'm wrong, we're using the exact same forms that were used previously, that my understanding was have already received approval. My understanding is what we're requiring to do, and Bill can speak to this in more detail. My understanding is what we're requiring for these businesses to do is to buy insurance that covers the area that they're using, which is city property, but they're covering it with their premises liability. So they're covered, Okay, the business is covered, and then they should be naming us as an additional insured, the city is an additional insured, so that should there be an issue, both the business is covered and the city's covered. I haven't looked at those documents recently, but my understanding is that's the concept, and that was what was put in place prior when we did this before. And as far as I know, there's been nothing changed from the previous time we did this.
And
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
in addition, they're serving alcohol in those areas, and they have to get that all approved through the alcohol and gaming department as well to expand their business out into those areas. And that's all gets approved as well.
Mr. Montoya?
Yeah, I'd like to call this meeting point of order, Mr. Mayor. City Attorney, shouldn't we have a second before we start doing discussion?
Yes, yeah, you should.
Thank you.
So I'll entertain a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mayor, I think he made
Point of question.
the motion.
Oh, what?
He made the first motion.
Oh, he made the first motion. I'm sorry.
That was on item 4.
I'm sorry. Sorry, I've been through a lot this week. I apologize. So the second? Is there a second? There's not a second. So this motion,
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
go ahead, Mr. Romero.
I would like to make a motion to approve, to allow the community development to issue permits with the conditions that our attorney, Scott Aaron, drafts language that will ensure that these businesses are covered, that the city is relieved of liability on the use of these sidewalks.
There's a motion on the floor to allow these permits to exist with the legal verbiage that would free the city of liability.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, I'd ask that you ask the maker of the motion if he wants to amend his motion.
Would you like to amend your motion, Mr. Ulibarri?
Yes.
Okay. A second, please.
I'll second that with those conditions.
Okay.
Discussion, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya?
I'd just like to comment that I see this as being very unsafe, and the liability that comes with it is a high price to pay. We shouldn't be compromising the public's way. The public owns the sidewalks and the streets. The businesses and the city will end up getting both sued if something should happen. Too big of a liability for me. It's not right and it's not fair that some businesses can take advantage of this and some can't because of their location and where there's no room in the streets, or it's going to be an unsafe practice. I think the ordinance covers this, and I think that if we want to revisit the ordinance, then we should, and advertise it, publicize it, and come back and vote on it, on something like this. But for us to be amending ordinances that we have put in place and that they're the law, I don't feel that this is my duty. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya?
No.
Councilor Ulibarri Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Ulibarri Jr., a second by Councilor Romero. Thank you, Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. And Mr. Scott Aaron, the next order of business. Cassandra?
Item number 6, request approval of resolution number 21-09, setting the duration of the Charter Review Commission and other terms and duties as a governing body deems advisable. We have our city attorney, Scott Aaron.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Aaron. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. So this resolution is, part of it at least, was at the request of the Charter Committee they had pointed out that the city council is required under the charter, the current charter, to set the duration of the Charter Review Commission and other terms and duties as the governing body deems advisable. And so this resolution is before the council to set the term of what the charter committee is going to be. In other words, how quickly does the charter, how quickly does the city council want to see this charter work finished? Bearing in mind that after the charter review committee finishes its work, their recommendations need to come before council, and council needs to make a decision which of those recommendations it wants to adopt, if any. And the council also needs to determine whether or not it wants to make some amendments of its own that would be different from what the charter review committee is proposing. And that's going to take some months, some time to do. And so the council needs to set a date by which they want this done. And then also for the charter review committee to elect or appoint a representative from among its members to come to the governing body on a monthly basis, just to report on the progress of where it's at so that the city council has an idea kind of where things are at. And then the city council will be in a better position with that information to determine what it wants to do with the timeline.
Mr. Aaron, does the current charter say anything about the life of the charter members or the commission as it sits now?
I don't think I follow in your question.
Does the charter include the terms of the charter commission? Does the current charter?
No, it does not. All it says
Okay.
is that the council shall set the duration.
Okay.
So it's up to the city council to make that decision. I would also recommend, my initial impression is that the members of the charter review committee, and we have an excellent committee. I mean, these guys have a lot of experience. They're all very successful in their individual careers. I think we've got a great group, and I want to say that because these guys have already met a couple of times, and I think we've got, like I said, we're going to have a lot of good things that come out of their meeting and the work that they do. However, I think it might be a good idea for council to give the charter review committee the scope of what the council wants them to focus on, because the previous charter review committee basically rewrote the entire charter, and this was the 2010 version, got a total rewrite. And my impression is that that's not what the city council wants this particular charter review committee to do. Now that's up to the council. You guys make your decision, but the governing body needs to set the duration. In other words, what's the deadline by which you want to receive their final recommendations? And I think it might be appropriate and instructive to the charter review committee to get from the council exactly what parts of the charter the council is looking to modify. Maybe the council's looking to do a total rewrite like they did in 2010. That's totally up to the council, but I think a little bit of direction here would help the commission, because otherwise the commission's in the position of thinking they have to rewrite the whole thing.
Thank you, Mr. Aaron.
I don't blame them, because
I'd like to recognize Mr. Apodaca, but I have a couple of comments before we get into this. How we don't expect a full rewrite. I think there were portions of the charter that we did not agree with, or that needed to be changed, or that should be changed, and so we're not requiring them to write the whole thing. We already knew the charter. We knew those areas that we did not like. But if the Charter Commission is interested in hearing about those, we'd be happy to share them with you. And not having to rewrite the entire charter and fixing those things would shorten the term of the Charter Commission. So with that comment, I think the commission just needs to know what were those things that were sticking out, and then changing those, and then coming together, presenting it to council, and the commission is done their job. So that's my take. So Mr. Apodaca?
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya? Excuse me, Mr. Apodaca.
Yes, to back up a little bit, that's one of the reasons that I requested in January that this commission be established right away because of the time frame. I think we need to listen and hear our city clerk first on this issue because she has some deadlines that she's got to meet also. And Mr. Aaron Scott, we do have a female lady by the name of Sandra Madrid on the commission. So it's not all about you guys. I also agree with you, Mr. Mayor, that this shouldn't be rewrite. And according to our existing charter, if you look into section 105, it says that the purpose of this is to review, to evaluate, propose, and recommend amendments.
Right.
It doesn't say to rewrite the whole thing or anything like that. The version that our city attorney did, the existing charter is 34 pages long. And the review that the attorney did had 9 pages added to it, I think. So that's not what this is intended for. I think it's the charter itself has been established. If there's things like, for instance, the runoff that needs to be taken off, well, that's something that you can look at. Procedures or election dates, if we want to combine the elections with the county elections, that might be something you'd want to look at. But to rewrite the whole thing or go item by item, I'm not sure that was the intention of the forefathers that created this charter.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I had Mr. Mayor, but I know Francisco had.
Mr. Apodaca? Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. We in the commission, as Attorney Aaron has said, we have a really good, sound body that is looking at and taking this duty on very seriously. In reviewing the charter, it's pretty much set in stone, what our mission is. It's not to rewrite the charter. Let's put that away. And we don't intend to rewrite the charter to the extent that they did the last time we reviewed this in 2010. According to the charter, the review should have taken place in every 5 years. You're supposed to have a review. You haven't done it in 10 years. In the last few years, some of the citizens have seen some problems. We've noticed problems. You've noticed problems that are basically caused by questions within the charter. When we review, let me back up. We've met once officially. We've tried to meet 3 times, but 2 of them, we didn't have proper notice. We had some members that went to the Open Meetings Act session yesterday. There was some question raised whether we had to have notice because we're a recommending body, but this is public policy. What we'd like to ask the council, first of all, is that we do notice these meetings because they are public. The public should have opportunity to listen in and possibly to make comments on the charter. This belongs to the community. It should be a community project. Within the Charter Commission itself, we've tried to meet 3 times. 2 times were thrown out because we didn't have proper notice. We finally met about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, where they elected myself and Mr. Greg Salazar, who's with us also tonight as chair and vice chair. And we do have a very solid commission. We do, however, have one opening in the commission because Mr. Steven Salas has declined to take part in it. I think there was some questions as far as his role with the senator.
You're mute.
So you'll have to address that.
I'll be handling that vacancy.
Excellent.
Yes.
As far as term of service, we'd like to expedite this just like you do and meet within a period of time where we can quickly go through the charter. And to answer a quick question, we're not going to redo the charter, but we'll review the charter. If there's areas in the charter that don't need revision, which there are plenty of them there, we'll simply say, is there anything that has to happen here? No, we move on. We have been asked by, I have anecdotally been asked by some members of the community, and then within the Charter Commission, there's questions that are raised in some areas of the charter. I can almost guarantee that we could complete this in a very quick fashion, somewhere probably, I would suggest September 1st, September 30th, somewhere in there, going through the summer, meeting with the regular meetings scheduled. We can probably do this in a quick fashion,
Mr.
but we need to
Apodaca,
address those areas.
Mr.
Yes.
Apodaca, can I just give you a recommendation? That
Sure.
timeline sounds all right. But these meetings that take up, those short hours or whatever, as long time as you meet. What I've gotten used to doing is doing a sort of like a half day retreat. Boom, we do it. We spend half a day and it's over. On a Saturday, you just do what you need to do, or you can do a large majority of it at that meeting. Taking an hour all this time, and we do this at work now, is that we're asking people to do these meetings. So they're power meetings, and they last a little longer. It could be, I'll buy you guys some tacos for lunch. And and you guys meet on Saturday at 10 to 2 or whatever, and start doing the majority of the work. Is just an idea, but your September 1st sounds good. We could work with that. And please come to the council meetings and update us as soon as you can. So
we'd like to, Mr. Mayor, I think that's a great idea. We'll have to take this back to the commission, and
Sure.
depending on their schedules,
Sure.
I do like that idea of longer sessions.
Yes.
Now, right now, our regular meetings are set by your Open Meetings Act as once a month for 2 hours.
That can change.
And we're gonna have to either add some special meetings that could be on a Saturday, and as you suggest, some power meetings. We've already begun those discussions as meeting more frequently in order to get through this in a kind of quick fashion.
Thank you.
One of the things that I'd like to do is we will have someone from the body report back to you on a monthly basis, but I would like to ask this of the council. As we begin the review, as you go through here, and I already heard one suggestion from Mr. Montoya or Councilman Montoya as the runoffs. That was one of the questions that's been brought before us. So we'll tackle that, but we want to tackle these items in order as we go through the articles of the charter. It'll be quick. Some of these, as I said, there's nothing has to be done. Let's move on. Nothing has to be done, move on. When we get to something, we need to address it with due diligence. And if we're going to suggest revisions, we have to look at the verbiage and the legality that's involved in each of the areas that we would modify or recommend for your consideration.
Yeah, we understand.
Everything we do has to go back to the council.
Yeah, I understand this. We need to get back to the agenda. I appreciate your time.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Romero.
First off, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Francisco and Greg, and I don't know if anybody else from the commission was online, but thank you guys for what you guys are doing and what you've committed yourself to. I know it's a big task, and the last ones that did it was they worked hard, and I'm sure you guys will too. But my suggestion, Mr. Mayor, would be that we have a joint. In an effort for transparency, we could meet individually with the commission on where we figure, each one of us, where we figure that, changes need to be made on this, on the charter. But I think a joint meeting, and it could be real, we all do our homework before, and we have our bullets as to the items we want, we would like, you guys to maybe look at. Of course, you guys are the independent, but at least where we're at the end of the day. You guys put the charter together, we approve it. If there's changes, that we don't feel comfortable that you guys might have made. If we don't have that joint meeting together where you understand the feelings from mayor and council right now, it makes for you guys to go and work on something and come back and say, oh, well, you didn't address this that I felt, or a couple of us felt, the majority, that would take you guys back to the table. You know what I mean? So I think the important thing, if we could have a joint session, Mr. Mayor, and it could be an hour and a half, an hour, to where, the commission themselves can listen to us as a whole, where, what we feel needs to be addressed.
I agree.
And then from there, once we get on that, again, it makes we need to work together, and you understand where we're at, Chairman and both chair.
Sure.
Mr.
Absolutely. Mr. Aaron, you, maybe you can arrange that meeting to happen. I think it's a good idea. Mr. Montoya?
I was going to suggest that in order to not publicize a meeting and the whole works, and have a special meeting for that, maybe at one of their first meetings of the commission, maybe each one of us could have 15 minutes with them and individually, and express our opinions and what we would like to see, versus having a full joint meeting. And the other question I had, I still want to hear from Cassandra, see what her time frame is, and what her limitation is, and what her challenges are. Was I on mute?
No.
You're on.
Oh, okay.
Cassandra, do you have any considerations or anything that need to get done within the timeline?
Mr. Mayor, if we're going to place the amendment on the ballot for the next election, the way it stands right now is the election is next March. So our resolution is due in November. However, I was working on some information to take to council in reference to asking council if they would like to opt into the local election, which is with the county. That was passed in 2018. If we were to do that, we wouldn't have very much time. We would have to have this done by June. So those are the two deadlines, June or November.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? So, Mr. Aaron, I think thank you for the commission, and thank you for all the work you're doing, and Mr. Apodaca and Greg. Let's talk about setting up some meeting times, whether it's Councilman Montoya's idea or Mr. Romero's.
Mr. Mayor, just
Yes.
kind of a clarification.
Yep.
The way Councilman Montoya brought it up, you're saying so we don't have to. Right now, I don't know who would answer this one. So right now, are we saying that we're not going to have, we're not going to follow OMA for Charter Commission?
Well, the ones that follow the OMA is going to be the Charter Commission, not us.
Yeah.
We're going to just go and be a guest at their meeting and present our ideas one at a time. It's not going to be all at once.
There won't be no separate notice for each one. It would be a joint notice. Am I right, Cassandra? Joint notice. We're going to do it for the Charter Commission anyway, so it'd be a joint notice for the council and the charter, and then we're all there together. Am I
Yes,
correct?
we would, Counselor, we would place that notice because you would have a quorum at their meeting.
Yeah, but it would be one joint because you have to advertise for the Charter Commission anyway, so it would be just one notice for both of us.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So
Thank
it wouldn't
you.
be like two. Thank you, Mayor.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Just a suggestion.
Okay.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council? Is it? I don't think it's possible to get everything done by June, realistically. So then we couldn't join the election option to combine our elections with the county. So we would be out of that for a while. And from what Mr. Apodaca is saying, September looks more realistic. So I would take his recommendation, September 1st. But that's up to you, Councilman.
Madam Clerk, is there an issue if we change that resolution since it's already been advertised? Or is this one for just publication at the present time?
Counselor,
This one has June 30th.
a resolution you can change, you can modify.
Okay.
Okay, Cassandra. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Cassandra, so were you going to suggest that we opt? Of course, it's up to the council for us to make the decision, but prepare an option for us to participate in the elections now in this November? Is that what you were?
Yes, I tried to do this
Yeah.
back in 2019 and I was unable, so I wanted to put it out there. It's always going to be an option, so if we don't do it this time around, we can do it the next time. It's more efficient and there's some cost savings as well.
Yes. Yeah, and I see the benefits in that. It just, yeah, I think it's kind of tight this time, but I understand where we were at last time. They did. Okay. All right.
So what's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve resolution 21-09 with the changes in the resolution to reflect September 1st instead of June.
Very well. Second, please.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya,
Yes.
Counselor Romero.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Francisco. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for having us.
We will report back on a timely basis to you every month as to where we are, and we will plan a joint session. I'll talk to the commission about it. We'll get back to council. Thank you for
Thank you,
for
guys.
time.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, thank you. Next order of business.
Mr. Mayor, our last business item is item 7, discussion and selection of a project to be considered for the 2021 Community Development Block Grant CDBG application program. We have Danny Goudelet, our Public Works Manager, presenting.
Thank you. Thanks for being here, Danny.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm here to discuss a potential project for the 2021-2022 CDBG application. As you know, we did conduct our 4 meetings for the public and voice their opinions as far as potential projects. You guys should have received it in your packet. I stand for any questions.
Mr.
Romero?
Mr. Mayor? Danny, I noticed here, I did have some of my constituents, that participate in this, that were from the Crestone area. Am I correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And I know this is just a suggestion, and I just want to let Mayor know, I've been, Mr. Mayor, hello? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
okay.
I can hear you.
No, just as we move on, I'm happy to say that we have a governing body here that supports one another. We've all supported projects in each other's wards, and I want to, and I'm going to advocate, for my constituents in that Crestone area. We have a big drainage issue that not only impacts the Crestone area, but impacts Alamo Street, and that branches out to other streets, and we have problems with the street sweeper because the chaos that it creates. And I'm asking the mayor and council to really consider the Crestone area. Like I said, we've supported I have supported other projects in different wards, and I'm going to advocate, and I know that based on my information, I've spoken to members of the CDBG board, the state board. I've given them information on the Crestone area, and they feel that Crestone area does fall within the requirements. And maybe Danny, you could attest to this, but I would really lobby my colleagues here that we address drainage issue in the Crestone area.
And Mayor and Council, I do have, I think Lisa Campbell and Neva Romero from Stantec are on board if you need to ask them any question as far as the CDBG. They are experts at this grant. Okay. So if you need, they're there for your questions.
So can you explain, or they can explain, Danny, the requirements, the low to medium household income. Could they kind of give us details on that?
Neva or Miss Campbell? I guess they're not there. I guess for as far as the low to, oh, there she is.
I don't know where Lisa's at. She's the expert, but low to moderate. So we would have to do door-to-door survey or some kind of a survey to meet the criteria for low to moderate in this area. So how many residents? We'd have to do a certain percentage of the residents survey. And I'm trying to do Lisa right now.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, may I add? This is Maria. May I add something?
Yes, Maria.
And see if Neva can clarify. I believe when we got some training from CDBG that it was the impacts to low and moderate income for people who use the roadway. And when we met with all of the public and the different roadways were presented, which included a Creston area, one of the areas was Hot Springs, which is at 60% design already, so it's almost ready for construction. And that we had already done a low and moderate income door-to-door survey there. And because a lot of people use that roadway who don't necessarily live in the area, but still use that road to get to and from the plaza, I believe it may have also met the requirements. And that was already done previously. I think Danny might be able to tell how many times.
Yeah. And if I could make a comment to that, I know the county just they received some CDBG funding, and I can't remember the name of the subdivision. That qualified, and that was it wasn't a major roadway or anything. So I mean, just in like I said, my conversations with those on the board and those that have gone through this process before, I feel, and I'm gonna fight, I fight for my area, and that's a project that I feel that can be a benefit to the community. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Councilor Romero, I would like to say that we've already been moving forward with Stantec on the El Creston area. It is one of our, I think, roughly 4 or 5 road projects that they are already working on planning and design for us. So we are aware that is an absolutely critical project.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya.
Question, Maria. So your staff is recommending this project be on Hot Springs Boulevard.
And Danny could also provide some input here. Yes, Councilor, because the planning and design is already at 60% done, because utilities will be going in there and replacing all utilities, and that's already funded by a separate funding source, that this appeared to be the most beneficial to the low and income population and the community, and something that was already pretty much ready to go.
Mm-hmm. And the CDBG does run off a point system, and the Hot Springs area, with the amount of traffic that does flow through that road and to the locations of the plaza, the schooling, it goes to the mental health place there. We'll get a lot of points for that.
And Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, just for the public's view, don't think that your comments weren't looked at. Mr. Benito Duran, I think, emphasized on the improvements on 8th Street extension. And the city is working diligently with the county to pothole patch, if I'm not mistaken, Danny, on 8th Street before the city line. And the county is addressing the drainage issues. That's a meeting that took place with our city manager and the county. But 8th Street extension will be one of those projects that after we do Legion and Mountain View and these other projects in Old Town, that will be addressed. That will probably be on next year's, it's already on the ICIP plan, but sidewalks and repaving of the 8th Street extension should be on next year's request for CDBG funding.
And that
hopefully.
is another requirement as far as the CDBG that is on your ICIP plan as well.
Now, is El Criston on the ICIP?
I don't think it's on there right now.
Mhm. So,
I mean,
so
basically-
so then you're saying that we can't direct this project to El Criston?
We could try, but in the point system, I don't think we'd be getting that many points because it's not on our ICIP, and that's kind of one of the requirements on there.
Yeah. And I know, Maria, you had already mentioned prior that in other meetings that that this would be included in here because of those other projects that you're doing.
And as far as those other projects for El Criston, we do have Stantec giving a cost estimate where we could do the plan and design, where we could be ready for shovel ready for the call for projects. This is what we're looking for next year.
And Hot Springs Boulevard already has a plan and design, plus there's other work being involved in it.
Yeah, and that is in our ICIP as well.
Okay.
And Danny, if I remember going back to last year's, there was kind of an issue as far as it met the traffic threshold, but I think there was a issue where we barely qualified for the low to moderate income because I know there was some extra stuff that they had to do. Am I correct?
Yeah, and I did talk with I can't remember her name from DFA, and she kind of made some recommendations as far as the people that actually live around there that we could go ahead and add them to this. For this year, we could get a better point on the application.
And Danny, and Danny, you mentioned, and this might be going a little bit off subject, but you mentioned other projects for the road funds and that, but the other priorities that we have in this city are 7th Street, Legion, some of these, on that side of town. Am I correct? Those are our main priorities. So even if I were to, give into this, and of course, it's going to come out to a vote anyway, what project we select, but the street projects we have currently now, the big ones, what can you, for the record?
On my main road that I would like to get fixed is Legion, because the deterioration of that road it's deteriorating quicker than anticipated because of the big trucks that are going through there. There is a lot of issues as far as safety for the school bus with the kids going over those bumps. There's the hospital gave me a recommendation because it's hard to stabilize patients while they're in the ambulance and stuff. The fire trucks, they're new fire trucks with all the water and weight on those things too as well. The road is so like roller coaster. This has been my number one project since a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Danny.
Yep.
I don't know if it's appropriate for Danny to discuss the other road projects that he is also currently working on.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of want to get to is that again there's and
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest. Those I'm honest and I've given into other projects. I've given into other projects. In the past, we focused on other sides of the town, and I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna fight for my area, and I know that, of course, I know it's not on the CDBG, but of course, like I said in the past, I've given in and we've focused on some other projects. And, as far as getting on the ICIP, it's a matter of putting that ICIP up and we add it to it. With that, Mayor, I make a motion to recommend the El Criston project for the CDBG block grant funding application.
A second?
Mr. Mayor, I'll second that motion, but I have a question for Maria. Maria, so if we approve this, what other resources or backup plan do you have for Hot Springs?
Councilor Montoya, we're reaching out with all options, whether it's federal funding, state funding. We're hoping for some possible capital outlay, but we do know that there's going to be some federal funding coming down the road. So we will try every, and then DOT funding as well. But like Danny said, Legion is kind of our #1 project. So we were looking at finishing Mountain View and doing Legion with DOT funds. I know we're doing DBIB with some funding. The other projects that Danny was working on is South Pacific University, Dolores and McRae,
El Creston.
El Creston, and 8th Street. So we had several different road projects that we're looking at from every possible funding source.
So how is this going to conflict with the project you already have for El Criston?
Well,
Right now we're just looking in plan and design for the Creston Circle with Stantec is working with us on that.
So I don't know if this will meet CDBG's requirements, and if we don't receive the funding for it, then we'll come back again next year. But it seemed to us that the best alternative was the Hot Springs Road for being able to get the funding. And then we could use our other sources for things like El Creston.
Any reconsideration, Mr. Romero? The thing that I'm looking at, I guess, is that Hot Springs is already going to be doing some other utility work there, and then it's more of our monies for a buck's worth doing Hot Springs. But
and Danny, what's the overall cost on the proposed project for infrastructure, everything at for Hot Springs?
So Hot Springs about 1.4. We're going to apply for the full 750 for Hot Springs to the CDBG if you guys do approve it. That's the as much as we can apply for the CDBG. So we are going to have to look for additional funding to cover the rest, but it will cover where the utilities are going to be put in.
now, will that extend with that project, 1.2 million going through Bridge Street around the plaza?
No, it will go up to Valencia Street. So it'll be from Mills to Valencia. It's about 1.4, I guess is where it's at now. And it does include updating the sidewalks to ADA compliance and that, which we're working on that transition plan as well. Basically, it's up to you guys to make your decision on which road you guys would like us to apply for.
And my next question, Maria, who's helping us with the application process? Because I know the other problem that we had last time was because we directed staff to do it, knowing that it was going to take some extra help. Our staff isn't equipped to, take care of this process. So are we hiring a consultant, or do we have a consultant on staff right now?
Councilor Romero, Stantec has been helping us, and I believe actually at no cost right now because they would really like to help us get this project moving. But Stantec has been the one helping us, and they are on the meeting right now, and they've also made connections with CDBG, where we've actually had meetings with the CDBG entity to help make sure that we get the most number of points. So the staff have been spending a lot of time trying to get the right help.
Okay, so, and Danny, you would attest to this. I don't know if Maria would on this because she wasn't involved in it. But it was proposed by Robert Archuleta that we get a consultant, and of course, the city manager at that time denied that. And you know how you know what happened anyway. You understand the back dealings. Is that the same? Is that the same kind of help that we're getting from Stantec now, or do we need that addition? You know how we need that additional help, Danny, right?
This grant is the hardest grant to actually obtain, and with Stantec's help, knowing that they've been through it, they're professionals at applying for this grant. There's a lot of things that threw us off last year when Robert was trying to do it on his own. I mean, they kind of recommends that mayor and city manager attend this meeting to show that they're really interested in that road to get fixed. You know what I mean? And last year, Robert was up there by himself trying to present it. There's some points on that as well.
Yeah. So Stantec wasn't involved in that process at all?
No, no. The year before they were.
And,
All right.
and for the record, we've never applied for this funding, and well, up till last year, it had been what, 5-6 years? Am I correct?
Yes, before the last one was for the addition to the senior center.
Thank you.
So it's your guys' decision.
What's the pleasure of the council?
And there's other recommendations that were made by in the meetings as well. I mean, University by Melody Park, they wanted, but Melody Park don't belong to us. 12th and National, Arthur Mondragon is from Creston Circle. He was talking about on the recreation area there, the lighting and drainage there. 8th Street extension to city property or city line there.
Mr.
It's your decision.
Mr. Mayor. But Mr. Gutierrez, those other recommendations don't have anything going on with them right now. No funding.
No.
Yeah, I think the best for our buck is probably the hot springs, since we already have invested so much on it. But Chairman
We're at
Romero,
60% planning design on that as well. So
Okay, I'll offer this to council. You know, I'm just going to ask. You know, we're all here to fight for within our respected areas. And I know Councilor Montoya. You know, we have the Legion, and I know there's gonna be additional funding for roads. But I'm going to ask this then: if I do amend my motion or remove my motion, do I have the assurance that this area will be addressed in our next funding applications? Do I have that?
You have mine.
Okay. Okay. With that, Mr. Mayor, I remove my motion for CDBG funding.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I remove my second. And the only reason, Councilman Romero, I'd like to say is because we've already we got to get the best deal that we can for our money. And if we're already investing some 65% of our funds in hot springs, it's best to just pump it all in there. You know, those streets that are utilized the most are the ones that we got to concentrate on, because a lot of them have been neglected for so long. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, or I give you the courtesy, Mr. Romero, to make the motion.
All right. Mr. Mayor, with that, I make a motion to go ahead and select Hot Springs as to be considered for the 2021 development block grant. That's my motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Counselor Ulivari Jr.,
Yes.
Counselor Romero,
Yes.
Counselor Montoya.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to acknowledge Councilman Romero for a good decision, spending our money wisely, and I keep my words. So my support for Creston's next project is in there. Thank you.
All right. Danny and Maria, you heard that. So
yes, we
Danny,
did.
Danny Gudula, thank you for all the work you're doing. The streets are looking good. The pothole machine's working. You're replacing street bulbs. You're like the busiest guy. So thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Next
Mr.
order of
Mayor?
business.
Next is executive session.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Romero.
Scott, we have the water attorneys. Am I correct?
We do. He's on the Zoom and he's present.
Okay, so real quick, do you have the give me 1 second, I had it here. The executive session exemptions for bargaining contracts, because I'd like to have exec to discuss, but I know we can go into executive for bargaining, but I'm not sure if you have the specific, to meet the OMA.
Scott, are you there?
Sorry, guys, I was on mute. Let me repeat that. Yes, there is an exemption for meetings for the discussion of bargaining strategy preliminary to collective bargaining negotiations.
What's the 10-15-1-H what? What is that?
The 10-15-1 H5.
Okay. And then the one for the water would just be for.
Oh, that's litigation.
Okay.
That would be number 7. Meeting subject to attorney-client privilege pertaining to pending litigation.
Okay. All right. With that, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to enter executive session for, first of all, matters permitted by section 10-15-1H7. To be more specific, is for water litigation between the city of Las Vegas and the Acequias. The other matter will be for 10-15-1H5 for the update on police bargaining contract. And the next item would be for personnel matters as permitted by section 10-15-1H2 for personnel matters more specific to community development employee in concerns of, since we need this. Concerns of violation of City of Las Vegas policies. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Aaron, was that a sufficient explanation of the reason we're entering into executive session?
I'm reading H2 right now in detail to make sure we're compliant.
I'm sorry, was it H2 or H5, Scott?
H2 is limited personnel matters.
Oh, okay, then H2. Okay.
For the purposes of discussing hiring, promotion, demotion, dismissal, assignment, or resignation of any individual public employee. So if that's what's going to be discussed, then
you know what, Scott, I'll pass on that one. We'll address that later. Okay, I'll remove for personnel matters as permitted by section 10-15-1H2.
Thank you.
I'll take the amendment and I'll still have a motion, second motion.
Thank you. All in favor, roll call?
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Livari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero and a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Who would you like in executive session?
The attorney, Mr. Sanders, Scott Aaron, Bill Taylor, and the council.
Okay. Mr. Sanders, if you could click on the top right to join.
Yes.
Maria?
Why is it dying so much? It's still dying.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor? Okay. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to exit executive session and return to regular session for the reasons for personnel matters as permitted by section 10-15-1. Oh no, we didn't. 10-15-1 H7 of the New Mexico Open Meetings Act for water litigation, and also for 10-15-1 H2. Hello? Can you hear me, Cassandra?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry. And for 10-15-1 H2 for update on police bargaining contracts. And I'd like to note for the record that only those matters specified in the motion for executive session were discussed and no decisions were made.
Mayor, you're muted.
Second? Second by Mr. Montoya, who's muted. All righty.
There, Sarah,
Now,
second.
and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh, you have to roll call.
Counselor Romero? You're muted, Counselor.
It's weird. It's like changing. So yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.? You're muted, Counselor.
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
First by Mr. Montoya, second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night. Good
Thank
night.
you. Good night.
Yeah.